Hey guys, it's Mel here from the Ad Staff Group. Today I'm really excited to share with you that I've been on the Confessions of a Recruiter podcast. Blake and I talked all things recruitment, starting a business, growing. Jump on and listen.
Welcome back to another episode of Confessions of a Recruiter, and we are here and joined by Melissa from Ad Staff Group. How are you, Melissa?
I'm fabulous. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Thanks for coming in and joining us today. It's a Thursday today, and we normally do this on a Wednesday, so we've got a new energy this morning, which is nice.
I'm loving the energy, and look, Thursday's a good day. We're very close to Friday.
And for those of you who haven't realised yet, Declan is not here. Yours truly is unfortunately sick this week, so he's at home nursing a man flu. So if everyone can give him our regards, then hopefully we'll be back into the office very shortly. But over to you, Melissa. Firstly, congratulations on a decade in business.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We hit our 10 years in April this year.
That is wild. So 10 years in business. I'm sure you've got a lot of stories and skeletons in the closet, surely.
Look, I've seen a few things along the way, and definitely it's been a roller coaster. So I'd love to share some of those experiences.
Yeah, well, let's start with how you got into the recruitment industry, because I think that's always important for people to get a bit of context on where you came from to where you are now. So was it 15 years?
Look, about that, yes. So I originally, post-school, went and did the university thing that we have to do as we were told back then. And it was, I wanted to be a journalist, I wanted to be a politician. I went and studied all of these fields and thought, I better get a job to make some money while I'm racking up all these HECS debts. And I actually started with an industry body, an industry group in the construction and trades industry. And I was really lucky at quite a young age that I was given the opportunity to work with young people and apprentices and help them with their career. And that was sort of my foot into working with people. And then
That would have been tough back then, like construction industry 15 years ago.
It was. And look, I've had amazing mentors and amazing support around me. And I think that when you're working with businesses to help them solve a problem, they're very open, very engaging, and helping young people through a trade when you're a young person and you can relate. I've felt we had some really positive outcomes from that experience. And then after about 4 or 5 years with that organisation, I thought, hang on, I'm ready for something else. Which is when an opportunity with Manpower in their trades and construction and blue collar field came available. So I kicked into full recruitment mode.
So how did you go from essentially being in the industry to deciding I'm going to now recruit for the industry? Was that a proactive thought, or was it like, did you fall into it like everyone else, or how did that happen?
I definitely fell in like everybody else. I sort of thought, what skill set do I have and have I developed in my last 5 years with this organisation? And part of that was I'd built a lot of networks. I'd learnt a lot about industries that I never knew I would know so much about. Specifically, it was the electrical trade. And I started looking at jobs and what else is out there, what can my future look like? And I saw recruitment and I thought that sounds really cool, that sounds really fun, could align with some of those skills I've built up. So I interviewed with a few different firms and they were all white collar professional firms at the time, and all of them said, we'll call you back. So I waited for my call back and then I got one and they said, we actually just had something open in our trades side of the business and our blue collar and we think you'd be amazing. And that was when Manpower opened their door to me. So it was a really great opportunity to have.
Nice. Okay, so you did blue collar trades, temp recruitment?
Predominantly temp recruitment.
Nice.
We did do some perm as well. We were a small team of 4.
Okay.
And worked really well together. I was so lucky to start with an amazing manager, amazing senior recruiter, and we all just bounced off each other.
So what date would this have been?
I should have checked my LinkedIn before this session because
2012? Wait, 2010?
I'm going to say, what year are we now? We're 2024.
24. Hang on,
so
let me
take
just
about 11 years off.
Yeah, 2011. 2011 to 2013 at Manpower Group.
There we go.
Okay, so this was post-GFC.
Yes.
And things were pumping back in 2011, 2013, weren't they?
Yeah, we were around the mining boom.
Yeah.
There was a lot happening in the blue-collar space. So I transitioned to learning a lot more about other blue-collar sectors, so manufacturing, warehousing, not manufacturing, but mining, just really diversified my knowledge out of just that kind of electrical construction space.
Yep. And so you were at Manpower for a couple of years, 2.5 or something around that?
About that, yeah.
Yep. And so and then you started your own agency.
I did.
That's not much experience.
That's not much experience.
Were you naive or very, very talented?
I don't know, a bit of both maybe. Probably very naive and maybe 10% was talent. But my story's a little bit different. Not all of it's on LinkedIn in that I sort of felt that I needed to do more and learn more. So I thought it was a great idea to go back to university and finish my business degree. While I was there, I thought, well, I'll start a business on the side to help cover the costs of that. So I actually joined what at the time was a recruitment franchise and found very quickly within about 6 months that our values weren't aligned.
What franchise?
I probably won't share if that's okay.
Yeah, okay.
But at the time I learned it wasn't the right opportunity. I built up a client base and was delivering, but there were unfortunately some things in the background that occurred that I didn't agree with.
Oh, okay. So there was, it wasn't was it like a staffing misalignment, like a cultural misalignment, or they were just doing dodgy stuff and you're like, hey guys, this is no good?
Doing dodgy stuff.
Okay, all right.
And so I had two options. It was either go back and get a job and work for another agency, or just go, well, I've built up 6 months worth of a client base and I'm just going to give this a crack.
Nice.
So, of course, me being a little bit tenacious, I said, well, let's give it a crack. Because I had clients I was actively delivering for, I didn't want to let them down and lose their trust in me. So I had about a 24-hour period to create a business that could actually service them and continue working with them.
Interesting.
And sorry.
Well, I was about to say, because we talk to recruiters a lot around starting businesses, and something that does come up quite a lot is like non-competes. Like, what's my non-compete? Can I do this? Can I do that? And there's a lot of predatory non-competes, I guess I could say, that are out there. But there's some fair and reasonable ones. Like you want to be ethical with the way that you kind of go about your business. But how did that work from transitioning just straight over into your business? Did you have any issues with your previous employer with like non-competes, or were they just like, oh, whatever, see you later?
No, I didn't have any challenges. So when I left Manpower and sort of went down the avenue of starting out, I actively did not approach anybody that I had met through Manpower when it came to clients or relationships.
Yeah.
I really reverted back to my earlier days and relationships I built up previously. Focused on that. When it came to then moving away from this license or franchise type arrangement, I think they had bigger problems than me. So getting out of their contract, it wasn't too hard. Yeah,
gotcha. Because like there's kind of like two avenues, right? There's one where it's like, if you've built up your own clients, sometimes employers go, oh, look, you built up your own clients, whatever, see you later, all the best. And sometimes they kind of dig their heels in a little bit. So it sounds like they, as you say, they had bigger problems to deal with, which is great for you, really, isn't it? And
Absolutely.
So that's how Ad Staff Group started?
That's how Ad Staff Group started. So it was, as much as I'd love to say, there was a lot of strategy behind the name and behind getting it off the ground and how we would approach the market, I would be lying. I had probably a week to get my business name up and running, to get everything registered, to get my systems set up so that I could keep working with those clients and have them continue to trust me and want to work with me.
What was the biggest surprise when you started your business? Was there something that happened where you thought, wow, I didn't realize this was going to be so easy or so hard, or I didn't realize I'd have to do this?
One of the things that shocked me, which probably shows how naive I was going into business, was that people don't pay their bills on time.
Yes.
And I'm there going, okay, well, I've just billed these clients and they're 30 days overdue. What's happening? I've got bills to pay. So learning about cash flow, that was my biggest shock, which probably shows as a recruiter what you're not exposed to on the ground when you're selling are some of those back-end challenges.
100%. And so how did you solve that? Was that just you had to learn to love it and just deal with it? Or was there anything that you thought, all right, I need to get better at accounts receivable and collecting cash?
A little bit of both. I think one of the challenges, and I can only speak to the industries we work in, is that there are a lot of companies who have really long payment terms.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of learning to understand and to talk about it up front, as opposed to waiting until it was a problem and just not getting paid. On top of that was going through that learning, and for me, investing in, okay, I know this is now an area that I don't know enough in.
Yep.
How am I going to learn more and grow and build the skill set to manage this more effectively in the future?
Yeah. And before we jumped on, you spoke about you diversify industries, you've got apprenticeships, blue collar kind of trade, temp, you've got executive. If I've missaid this, just let me know. And you kind of do the life cycle of your industry in a sense. Can you give us some more context on the industries that AdStaff recruit in, what the divisions are and how you manage that?
Yeah, I'd love to. So initially, given my early years, I really focused on the electrical trade. That was where I was lucky enough to have a lot of contacts and relationships. So that was my focus point, was how can I assist these businesses, a lot of which were small to medium organisations who maybe didn't have as much cash to pay for a perm recruit for a tradesperson as some of the big organisations I dealt with Manpower. So I thought, surely there's a way that I can help them with my skill set and we can find where's almost a common ground. So we actually started out by doing almost unbundled recruitment services for those companies, which then led to more permanent recruitment for that industry, which we targeted the blue and the white collar in that sector. Which was also their professionals. So it was kind of that right from skilled tradespeople to project managers, engineers, estimators. We'd help with any of those nature roles. Over the years, as we continued to grow the relationships within the sector, different avenues kept coming to us. So people would say, we really need labour on the ground. Can you help us with our tradespeople as well? So there came a point where we'd been asked enough times. I always said I want to stay, arm's length from that area for a reason. And then I thought, do you know what, we're getting asked enough.
Blue collar temp.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we started that division of the business. At the same time,
What date was this?
I love that we're going back dates.
I'm picturing everything like in a timeline right now. Okay. And so I'm just trying to put the little pins on the timeline to where you're at. Because you started, just to clarify, so you started in electrical, then you moved to construction.
Correct. Yep.
And then you diversified and went not just electrical and construction, you just do trades and labour in a general sense, which you kind of wanted to avoid initially, but you couldn't.
Here we are.
And so was that like a 2-year journey, a 3-year journey? Like how quickly were you making these decisions, starting these divisions and going, oh, there's an opportunity here?
It was quite quick, I would suggest, probably within 3 years. Okay. And we had our apprenticeships division starting simultaneously. So we really had quite a few moving parts all at one time. Which I was very lucky in my early years to have a few people that I worked with in the past come and join the team. So one of which was the senior recruiter from Manpower, who I had learnt so much from. And another was one of my colleagues back at Master Electricians when I was in my electrical era early on.
Nice.
And apprenticeships era. So, yeah, we probably for those first 3 years or 4 years, we opened, as opposed to going really hard in one revenue stream, we went across about 3 or 4 revenue streams quite quickly.
That was going to be my next question. What I found when I started Vendito, my recruitment agency, with like 15 months experience. Mm-hmm. So that's why I relate to you quite well when I'm like, 2.5 years, you're like me.
Yeah.
And what one of my challenges were attracting recruiters to my business. Mm-hmm. I would have to hire rookies and train them up, because a recruiter with 3 years experience, let's say, would look at me and go, mate, you've only been in the industry 1.5 years. Why would I come and join your business? I've got more experience than you. Yeah. Did you have any challenges with attracting staff to your business in the early days? It sounds like you hadn't at that 3-year mark, but what about the early days? What was the structure in the early days? Was it just you ripping in, or did you have like any help? Or
it was me ripping in
initially
for that first sort of 6 months. And I think we were probably a similar age actually when we started out. So I was 25, 26 when I first stepped out, and at that time one of the ladies I worked with previously was made redundant, so I sort of reached out and talked to her about the dream and the ad staff dream that I had, and she asked for flexible work-life balance, having young children. I said, yeah, absolutely, I'm happy to, whatever you need, we'll work in with. Not too long later, another lady I worked with previously, who was a superstar recruiter, was coming back from maternity leave and wanted flexible work, and her employer wouldn't offer that at the time. So I said, well, I can, absolutely. What do you need, and how can I make that happen? So in the very early years, it wasn't initially my strategy, but it just so happened that way that I said, I'm happy to have a superstar 3 or 4 days a week rather than not have a superstar.
Yeah, well, they can basically crunch out 5 days worth of work if they're really, really good, 3 or 4 days. And, especially new mums or like new parents in general. Like we had this conversation with our last podcast guest where, the naivety of, like a young single person thinking about kids almost being a little bit of a, almost like hopefully I don't say this wrong, like kind of like baggage almost. Like, I got kids. Yeah. No, I got kids now. But it's funny when you actually have kids, you've got no better motivation than to succeed, and you actually end up being more focused and more successful and more driven because you've got young ones at home that you need to make sure you provide for. So it's like this little hack where if you can get someone that's just become a parent, even though it seems like, they've just had kids, they've got to go look after their kids, do school drop off, and it comes with like these responsibilities. They're actually, those responsibilities come with someone that's super motivated, super driven to make it all work because they've got, mouths at home to feed.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And on top of that, with any employee, everything's give and take. And I think if you can give that little bit of flexibility and that support rather than, a day off because, the kid's sick, whatever it might be, it's like, go and do what you got to do, and I'll be here. Come and deliver when you're ready. And that goes a long way.
100%.
And, I feel that as a society we've moved forward on that so far, which is great to see. And I'm really grateful that I've had a team that, for me it was an opportunity when other employers weren't offering that flexibility to say, okay, well, here's a way I can have some great people on my team and support them when they need it. And both of which are two of my longest term staff. One's been with me 9.5 years and the other for nearly 8.
You know what? That's super impressive. Congratulations for having staff for that long. I was looking at your business LinkedIn page. Let me make sure I get this right. Median tenure. Have you seen that?
No, I've not.
Okay, this is really interesting because you can really judge a business based off the median tenure of their staff. All right, and this might be a little confronting.
Okay, I'm not sure how to feel.
Okay. No, yours is exceptionally well. It's 4.6 years.
Oh wow,
The
that's amazing.
the average person at your business works for you for 4.6 years. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I would suggest so.
That's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
In contrast, ex-recruiter. Ex-recruiter. What's ex-recruiter? I'm probably just going to dunk on my own business. Analytics.
While you're looking though, from memory, the general recruitment turnover is approximately 12 months.
Yeah, 12 to 18 months is usually when someone turns over. So that's why when I looked at it and I was like, wow, that's really impressive. Got some really good tenure there. So
thank you.
There's a little pump up that maybe you didn't realize you deserve.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm coming in here more often.
Yeah. I think ex-recruiter is like 7 months. And the reason why it's 7 months is because we've only been going for 2 years.
I don't know if this is a test.
No, I just thought I'd provide like a counter narrative to some like longevity, because it's hard. It's really hard to maintain good staff and retain them. Sorry, I should say, because there's like everyone's got opportunities getting thrown at them left, right, and centre, and loyalty is not really that common these days. Everyone obviously needs to look after themselves, but what it does display, if you've got really good longevity at your business, it obviously means a couple of things. One, you treat your staff well, and two, they're obviously staying there because they feel like they're getting more value from you over and above maybe just a paycheck. Well, that's what I've experienced anyway. You can retain staff for a certain period of time if you're paying lots of money, but at the end of the day, the money ends up becoming not as relevant when you're not stressed about money, and then it becomes about the value that you get from your colleagues. So really impressive there.
Thank you.
No worries.
And I think in just on reflection with that as well is that money isn't everything to everybody, and it's remembering that. One of the things I've always wanted to do is create a place that I want to go to work. So in the early days when the local fit stop first opened, I said, I'm getting everybody memberships, and every lunch break, anyone who wants to, we're all going and training together. We're creating more of a place that we want to be. Everyone wants to get up and go and do things that they would enjoy doing after work, but we don't always have the time. So how do we create an environment that isn't just grind at your desk all day?
So how do you do that?
How do I do
that?
that?
How do you create an environment where you're not just grinding at your desk all day and people love coming to work and want to stick around for 4.6 years?
I mean, don't get me wrong, they definitely still need to grind at their desk for a few hours. It's not all just champagne. There's razor blades. But yeah, for me, it's really just engaging with your people, and it evolves over time. People want different things at different stages. But I like to try and create a bit of an element of fun. Recruitment's hard, recruitment's stressful. You think you're on a high, and then all of a sudden, the rug's ripped out from under you. And we all know how hard the job is. So let's make the environment a positive place to be. And that'll mean different things for different people. Some people, our environment, they might come in and go, this is not what I enjoy working in, and that's okay. It's for us though, it's something that we enjoy. So I will keep promoting what I enjoy and hope that other people come along.
Totally. Okay, so if there are any recruiters out there that are interested to find out what it's like to have a VA support them in their role, whether that be to bill more, reduce tasks that they don't enjoy doing, or be a more effective recruiter in their niche, then we definitely recommend reaching out to the Outsource People or TOP. Reach out to them, inquire on how they can implement a VA in your agency and to support you. And if you mention ex-recruiter or Confessions of a Recruiter, they will give you a 13% discount off your bill per month on this VA that will allow you to scale your business, scale your desk, and to bill more and make more money. So
Go reach out to the outsource people, say Confession sent you, get your discount and see what is possible.
So you've got 4 divisions at the moment? Is it 4 divisions?
Yeah, sort of 2 companies and then sort of 4 revenue streams within those companies.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. And so what do you find is the most consistent? Like, what are you most happy with? Like, we've got a lot of agency owners that listen to the podcast, and a lot of the thoughts that go through new agency owners' minds is, do I do the quick wins with perm? But I know contract and temp's probably better for me long term, but I need cash in the door, but it's not getting me value. And so how do you juggle like which revenue stream that you need to lean into and try and push more than others?
For me, one of the things that I feel has really supported us through the good and the bad times is any recurring revenue stream. Anywhere that we've had, a subscription-based model or a guaranteed revenue.
Have you got a subscription-based model?
We do.
What is that?
So we have a couple. So our apprenticeships business is a subscription-based model. So we have a recurring revenue billed first of the month, every month, direct debited out.
To who? To clients?
To our clients, yeah.
Tell me how much are you charging them?
Look, it's not a huge. I wouldn't suggest that it's going to give you a huge revenue. However, it is going to give you consistent revenue.
Yeah.
So it's not a large. It's certainly the smaller.
Okay, I'm just going to make this up. Let's say it's $1,000 a month.
Yeah, let's say it is.
Yeah, and so what are they like? What's the benefit? Like, what's your pitch? It's like, hey, look, why don't you go on $1,000 a month? If we find a good apprentice, we'll just flick you their resume and we'll call it a day. Like, what do you do?
For our money? What are they subscribing to? So it's a bit left of recruitment. We offer a industry-focused mentoring support program to young people coming through the industry and to the employers to help their apprenticeship experience. So the actual so it's
so it's not recruitment.
It's not recruitment. No,
it's mentorship and support.
Correct.
For the employers to look after their apprentices.
Correct. And
Gotcha.
To improve that experience that they have. Some of which will say, can you source the apprentice and recruit them for us? And then we'll engage the mentoring support.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas others will say, here, we've found someone we love. Can you do the testing with them? And if it's successful, they'll move forward in the program.
How did you come up with that?
So that was actually from, again, earlier in my career when I was in an apprenticeship role within Master Electricians Australia. That was part of the program they had. They wound the program down, made it redundant, and I approached them and said, I think we can make it work more effectively and efficiently with a smaller business and different technology. Would you work with me to do that? And they said, we would love that. So that's sort of how that came out of the ground. It's a passion of mine because I've been involved in it for such a long time. And I think I've been very lucky in that we've had so much support from that apprenticeship sector and received funding to support the program.
Awesome.
As well.
Good job.
Yeah, thank you. So it's one where if you don't have the industry specialisation or knowledge, it's not something you can just dive into.
Yeah.
But it's been something that's certainly filled my cup in that we get to keep seeing people come through the industry and grow.
So what would they engage you with? Because I'm just trying to maybe connect some dots between what you're doing there and maybe a different industry. So let's just say IT. A lot of the natural entryway into the IT industry is like an IT support person, and then they become a systems engineer or a network engineer, and they start to branch off and find their feet in some capacity. And so would that model work for someone who is doing something similar but in a different industry, or is it just really unique to maybe the clients that need you?
I probably don't know enough about the other traineeship-based industries to give genuine feedback on it. For us, being in licensed trade industries and seeing that apprenticeship completion rates sit around that give or take 50 to 60%. So people who start a trade, you go, I want to be a sparky, I want to be a chippy, I want to be a plumber. Chances are, if both you and I start, one of us isn't going to make it out the other end of
That's
our
me.
4 years.
I started.
There you go, see?
And I think Declan finished his trade and then quit the day he graduated because he didn't actually want to do it, but he did it because he needed to feel like that he's finishing something.
They did the thing, yep.
But I studied electrical for 12 months.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I thought, this is not for me. I'm out.
And it happens so often, and there's so many variables. Why did you feel it wasn't for you?
I think I was just a little bit of a rat bag and not focused and probably didn't take it seriously. It was in year 11, so I left school at the end of year 10, went to do like year 11 and 12 at like TAFE with an apprenticeship with it at the same time. And yeah, just wasn't very focused.
And, you're one of, you don't have to feel bad. There's only half the people going through are doing exactly the same thing. So
why is that? Do you know?
There's a whole lot of different reasons. I think one of the things that we look at is the right person walking into the trade to begin with. So that's where a really important conversation needs to happen of, are we talking to you about how challenging mathematically that the electrical apprenticeship is? Are we talking to you about what to expect on site? Bricklayers, we've had so many that start and within a week they walk out and they're like, this is hard work.
Yeah.
So, it's a conversation around, do you know what you're walking into? Have you done some work experience or something to understand what you're committing to? But then there's a multitude of challenges, a lot of... the demographic traditionally for an apprentice is going to be somebody who's in their late teens. They're going through life changes. A lot's happening. They're starting in a job where they may not have really understood what they were walking into. And they might not feel supported. They might not feel that they can talk to their boss. So as a third party support for both the business and the apprentice, our goal is to try and mitigate at least some of those challenges and create a support system around both parties to increase that retention program.
Yeah, nice. One thing that did come to my mind, circling back to when you started your agency, did you ever have management experience, like managing recruiters before starting Ad Staff Group?
No.
So talk to me about that then, because that's a really big mindset shift from being a recruiter on the tools, being the master of your own destiny, to then managing and mentoring and looking after recruiters for the first time. Like it's a little bit of a mind game because like they've got a lot of things going on that they're trying to unscramble in their mind, and you've got to try and unscramble it at the same time. I felt for me it was a really big eye-opening moment. Like, oh wow, okay, what are they actually telling me right now, and how do I figure out how to solve their problem? What was that like for the first time, bringing someone on board, having to manage them for the first time, and basically just jumping into the deep end?
Yeah, look, it's managing people is always an interesting adventure. It can be really rewarding, but can also be really, really challenging. For me, the first couple of people into the business were more senior than me and had more experience than me. So that was a great starting point.
Yep.
And then we had our first trainee.
How did you convince them to do that? Is it just because they wanted part-time?
And they thought that the opportunity and
of
what Ad
course,
Staff was all about. And we had trust, we had existing relationships, all of those things that came with. Yeah.
So it wasn't this magic sales pitch that you put on them and just like hypnotize them into coming to Ad Staff.
I don't think so. Not that I know of. No, it was honestly, it was I felt really grateful. I remember feeling really blessed that anybody would trust me with their future when I've been in business for 6 months, or 12 months, or whatever it was. So that was huge, and we had our first administrator and more junior person come in at that time. Just out of school, Madison, and she is with us now as a recruitment team leader.
Oh.
So, that was sort of our first 3 people are still going strong with us now, which is
How good.
really awesome. So, to answer your question, I think we were experienced enough that we didn't need to manage and train recruiters early on.
Yep.
That came probably a little bit down the track.
Yeah. How many people in the business at the moment?
At the moment, we're at 12.
Nice. So that's a decent team.
Yeah, and we've ebbed and flowed
Yeah.
as it does. Different challenges, COVID, post-COVID, all of those things saw us, grow, retract. So.
Talk to me about that. So what happened? You were recruiting away. How many people did you have pre-COVID?
Off the top of my head, I'd be guesstimating, let's say, maybe 14.
Okay. And then COVID hit. Like, walk me through what that was like. How did you handle it? What was going through your mind?
I'll never forget one day I said to my team, I think everybody should just take their laptops home today and just we'll practice what it'll be like to work from home. And so everybody packed up their laptops, took their keyboards and off they went home. And then the next day, the restrictions, nobody's allowed to leave the house. So everything moved so quickly. And probably the scary things, of course, were, am I going to be able to generate enough revenue to keep everyone employed?
Yeah.
And the next was supporting people as they were all going through their own emotional turmoil because of what was happening in the rest of the world. Every day it was, a different piece of advice from the government or a different what you were or weren't allowed to do, how far you were allowed to walk down the streets. So legislation for companies of whether people who weren't vaccinated were allowed to work. There was so much that you were just every day trying to work through and manoeuvre, and while you're trying to keep the business moving forward or at least keep it existing. Also then trying to show the team that everything's going to be okay, guys. It's, not give up. So it was tough. It was really tough.
What was revenue like? March 2020 was like when the first wave of hysteria basically came through. That was a big moment for me and Dec because we only do perm recruitment. And so at the time for us, I think we had, I can't remember exactly, but I remember it was my worst month ever trading. We generated $6,000 and there was 12 of us as well. So I think we went backwards like $100 and something thousand for the month. And I was thinking, wow, I don't have many months of this left in me.
Yeah.
And no invoices were getting paid. All final interviews were getting chopped. And it was like this really weird, uncertain time for probably like 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah. But in hindsight, I think COVID actually made me a much better business owner because I was probably a little bit loose before COVID thinking, whoa, recruitment. And now it's like, I know when the bad things can happen, you've got to really make sure that you've got good foundations. Yeah. So what happened? What was your story when that kind of March 2020 first round of hysteria happened? Were you okay because you had temp and contractors out, or what was that like?
Look, I would say we were okay. I wouldn't say that we were good. We were quite lucky in that the construction and trades, a lot of those industries were allowed to continue working during that period. Yep. So, I really felt for those industries like beauty and fitness and all those places that it was just tomorrow your doors are closed. Oh. Like all the things that you'd worked up to for all these years to have this business and you've just been told you can't even generate $1.
Fitstop just down the road here. Did you see what happened with them? I think it was Fitstop. They spent like, I don't know, $500,000 on their fit out, getting their business rocking and rolling. And a week before COVID, they had their opening launch and then COVID hit and then they were just done. Literally a week into business. It is heartbreaking. Imagine just going through that. Oh, sorry, I digress. But like so many gym owners that were like in the process of becoming a business owner all started in that first quarter. They just got completely jammed so hard.
And you've invested not only your time, but it's your energy, your love, finances, everything goes into getting a business off the ground. And to have something unforeseen happen like that, I couldn't imagine.
Oh, Devastating. So you were okay though?
We were okay. So we were lucky that some of our clients were servicing, supermarkets and places that had to stay open. They had to make sure their lighting was serviced and worked. Construction projects, a lot of them were allowed to, not all the time, but a lot of them were allowed to go to work and continue working.
Yep.
Given the uncertainty from some of our clients, we did find that some were using a little bit more temporary labour because they weren't prepared to commit to permanent because they didn't know what the next change was going to be.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, so that was what supported us through that period. Our perm, as did most people's, slowed. And our apprenticeships business was consistent. So that's why, probably one of the reasons I harp on about diversify your revenue, as great as it sounds to go and just build one massive revenue stream. My experience is that having diversification is what's helped us survive the challenges.
Yeah.
So, it was really tough. I think the back of COVID was harder for us than actual COVID from a business perspective.
Why?
Predominantly because the flow-on effects into the trade services construction have been a lot worse, as opposed to, only from my perspective and my experience, to the actual shutdown period.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I would suggest that a few things all kind of happened at once. The first was that delays in supplies started happening and actually getting gear to build something. Then there was the challenges of labour and immigration. So actually having enough people in the country, we sent so many people out or so many people left at one time, and we weren't actually having enough skilled people come back into the country to fill in the void. And the flow on from that was that those who were here were able to start saying, well, actually, as an hourly rate, instead of my, let's just say, $42 an hour, I now want $55 an hour, even though I might not be as skilled to actually deliver that value. So that all happened in a really quick timeline, and I would say that was more of maybe late 2022. So we kind of felt that as a more of an after fact, as opposed to right in the midst of COVID.
Okay, interesting. And so where are things at now? Do you sense that things are better today than they were 2 years ago?
I do, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that employers at that time were really challenged because they couldn't deliver their projects, and they had a lot of fixed contracts, et cetera, and they hadn't considered that they're actually going to have to pay double for materials, double for labour.
Yeah.
So hence, what we've seen now in the last 2 years is more construction companies than ever go into administration, liquidation. They then affect the entire food chain, which is subcontractors, suppliers, and recruitment. So,
have you had any issues with getting clients to pay that have just like pulled the pin on you and you've had to figure out either you just walk away from the fee, or like what's your experience around chasing debt, dealing with, because construction is like well known for it. They just like wrap their business up one day and they move on and they just like literally shaft everyone. It happens all the time. So like what do you do there to avoid that from happening? Do you do, I don't know, like credit checks, or what's the process for ad staff?
Yeah, a few things. For me, building a relationship with who you're working with and really being values aligned is so critical now. In the early years, it was sort of, growth opportunity, let's go.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's sort of going, okay, well, who am I committing to working with? What do they want from me? And what's my risk factor? When it comes to a perm job, the biggest risk is, okay, someone hasn't paid my invoice for this amount of money, and that's going to hurt if they don't pay. However, when we start talking what we call our resourcing, which is our on-hired staff, we'll have people out on projects for months and months and months. And when somebody can't afford to pay their bills or doesn't pay, that's when we start talking serious money.
Yeah.
And when it comes to actually mitigating that risk, as I said, relationships is one thing, and referrals through people you know, but also credit checks, insurance on clients. They're things that I would certainly recommend to anybody who's in that space. From that period after, I would say 2022 to probably 2023, an 18-month period, we had about 4 or 5 who went into administration on us all at once.
Ouch.
So,
what was the outcome?
Did
you get anything back?
A couple we did. So some of which were, long-term projects where clients might have, 10 tradespeople on a site for 3 months.
Yeah.
So you can imagine what wages would look like after that period of time. And, some people might just stop answering calls, stop communicating. We probably had 2 that we didn't recoup anything from.
Yeah.
And then we had others who we did have insurance on,
okay.
who we were able to claim back a percentage of the loss with.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah.
Okay. So that's probably, when you asked for my advice in that regard, is protecting the business is more important than growth.
100%.
And that's something that you have to learn the hard way, I think.
Yeah. And so where are you at today? Are you on the tools still? Like, what's your responsibilities at the moment? You're just telling everyone what to do and walking around and being the boss, or?
That sounds glamorous. No, I love recruiting. Yeah. I'm not somebody who doesn't want to be involved and engaged. It's probably to my detriment sometimes, and my team love it when I go away because I don't get involved in things.
Okay.
But I do love still talking to clients, and from time to time I'll jump in and fill a role here and there because
really?
Yeah, I love it.
Nice.
I love it.
A perm or a temp?
Whatever's going.
Nice.
If the team's
okay.
busy and I get some temp roles in, then
yeah.
And I always laugh when a client asks for me to be their contact and to recruit, and I'm like, you actually don't want me. I'm not the person that has the time now to deliver a really good outcome for you. Who you want is one of my recruiters or somebody within the team who can dedicate that. So I love to jump in, and if a client is looking for a temp to fill a gap and they need them in a day, that for me fills my little recruitment cup. I can go, okay, yes, I can get in really quick, I can fill this, and then I can get back out again, as opposed to a long burn recruit.
So how much would you be on the tools? You'd be on the tools 20, 30%, the rest managing staff?
Oh, I'd say probably on the tools maybe now, depending what we call the tools, if we're talking filling a job, 10%.
Yeah.
If we're talking engaging with clients and looking at managing those relationships, that would be a lot more. I'd say that's 50, 60%.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, which I love as well.
Yeah, awesome. What about goals? Like, you're 10 years in business now. Have you kind of reflected and gone, what's the next 10 years look like?
Yeah, absolutely. For me and where I see the business going, I've got probably a few good years left in me, I think. So what I'm...
Well, you're only 22, aren't you? So you've got a while till you retire.
Yeah, I've got a couple of years left.
Yeah.
So for me, it's really growing some of what we've found is working for clients. So, some of our models that we've built out, which is a bit more of retained type support for employers, where we'll support them with their employment and also, for want of a better term, sort of the HR support structure around bringing people in and supporting them in their onboarding period. And that's something that, allows us to provide more to a client. It's almost an outsourced type model.
Interesting.
Which is something, it's very different to placing a perm person. It's saying, we are effectively your recruiter, internal recruiter, except we're not. And would
that be a subscription model as well?
It would.
Yeah,
yes,
nice.
Yeah. So, we've started working with a few great clients on that, refined the model, and
it's like an RPO.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And that's something that I enjoy doing because you are providing a lot more consultative, long-term support and impact on an organisation, especially one that might be at 1 or 200 staff. They might not have a whole people and culture team, but
Totally.
they want to invest in the right support structures.
Yeah.
So that's something that I love and will continue to drive. And for me, it's continuing to grow a team and in a positive environment. That's what matters. It's not necessarily about the size of the business. It's about having a positive environment where you spend most of your life.
Yeah, well, have you heard of the Valley of Death?
No, I've not.
Okay, so the Valley of Death is like this thing in business, and it essentially refers to growth of a business. And essentially, once you get to like 12 or 15 people or more, it's the least profitable and the most stressful time ever for a company to grow. And you've got to get from like you can't just sit around like 20, 25 and keep growing the way that you did from 0 to 12 or 0 to 15. Because you've got new layers of management, more costs come in, there's more things to do, you're going to have to start employing non-revenue producers, and it's not as fun. And so they call it the Valley of Death because you need to scale beyond. You need to go from, as soon as you hit 15, you need to quickly go to like 25 or 30 and get out the other end to make it all worth it, basically. And so, having 10 to 12 staff in a recruitment agency is the best size for a recruitment agency from both a fulfillment, you can directly impact the people around you. You've got direct relationships with the people around you. Profitability is much better because usually most people are revenue producing, so overheads are a lot less. So there's this thing that's come out around recruitment agencies that the best sized recruitment agencies sit between like 6 and 12 people. So there you go. So you don't grow is essentially what I'm saying.
Look, I've been in the Valley of Death by the sound of it. When we went to that sort of just over 20 mark, it was hard, and there were different challenges that came, and it's interesting that you say that because we had a coach who I was working with only last year who sort of worked with us on the different stages of growth and where we would need to go from here, and what that next step looked like, and someone who has quite a strong background in recruitment, and exactly what you're saying is you can't now grow in small increments. You've got to go from that.
Yeah.
So watch this space. We could sit tight at 12 or we could hopefully
You'll have 30 in 12 months.
Yeah,
who knows?
that's it.
All right, so what we like to do at the end of the potty is ask a question to wrap things up. Now, this seems like a question that Big Sergio's done, but what we're going to need you to do is ask our guest the next question. So when we do finish, you'll get to write out your question for the next person. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm excited.
This is almost 2 questions. Funniest/worst candidate interaction. Surely you've got the staple story that you tell people that is just so out of this world that everyone has a laugh. And you're like, oh my God, this guy, you won't believe it.
Look, I've got a few, as I think we all do. I'm going to go back quite a long time. But I think one of the challenges that we have in any industry, but also in trades, is that we come across some interesting people from time to time. And I do recall that we had a candidate who actually, to cut a long story short, came in and claimed to have put a bomb under our office, and actually came in claiming they had a weapon. And
was this ad staff?
This was pre-ad stuff.
Okay.
Thankfully, so I had some other.
This is all the dodgy stuff that previous agency were doing that encouraged someone to put a bomb under the office.
And they're not funny because of course there were other variables to why, but one of the reasons for his doing this was to do with what we, being myself and my colleague who now came with me to ad staff, had done with hindering his opportunity to have a job, which was that we talked to all of the other recruitment gods and banned him from having employment in the future.
Wow.
And it unraveled from there. But yes, thankfully we all walked out safe. And we had police come to the office.
Wow.
One of the buildings was shut down. It was a whole scenario.
Wow, that's got to be one of the most interesting that I've heard. Then.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 100%. Bomb under the office, cops coming. That's amazing.
Well, look, we did go over the pub and have a couple of drinks while we were waiting for the clearance. It was all okay in the end. There was no bomb.
Well deserved. Well, Melissa, thank you for joining us on Confessions of a Recruiter podcast. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad to be here. And I'm sorry to have missed Declan, but next time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another Confessions of a Recruiter podcast with Blake and Declan. We hope you enjoyed and got a lot of value and insights out of this episode. If you do have any questions or you would like to recommend someone to come on the Confessions podcast, we would love any introductions. And remember the rule of the podcast: like, share, and recommend it to a friend. Until next time.